What's up? What's up? What's up? Friday live stream. I am Keith Kraker. I'm one of the co-founders here at Carb Diet Coach, and I will be answering your guys' questions about the app, nutrition, training, whatever you guys want to talk about today. Hope everybody's having a great Friday and have some good plans for the holiday weekend. If you guys have questions, either put them in the question box thing on Instagram, or put them in the comments here on Facebook or YouTube, and I will get to them during this live stream. So we're getting quite a few people in here. How's everybody doing on this lovely, lovely Friday? What if I mess up one day and knock myself out of a deficit? I think it's important to not think about like single days in isolation, because you might be out of a deficit for a single day, but if you look at your weekly average, you could still be in a deficit. So that's where using the calorie planner comes in very handy, is because, you know, if you do end up eating over your targets for a single day, that doesn't mean you failed for the whole week. You can easily account for that if you didn't binge, and you can have just lower calorie days throughout other days of the week and make up for that overeating on that single day. So try to stop looking at days in isolation. It's really what matters is really your average and trend over time, what's most important. So it's not like it's not like being in a deficit is like this on-off switch. Like you're either in a deficit all the time or you're in a surplus all the time. Like it's constantly in flux. So there will be days where you are in a deficit, days where you're in a surplus. What matters is that average. So hopefully that helps. Let's see here. Best types of workouts for fat loss. So I would try to not think about workouts as a way to burn body fat. I would look at workout, and this is specifically, I'm speaking about weight training. So you want to focus on and think about weight training as a way to build and retain your muscle. So if your goal is fat loss, it's very important to weight train hard and heavy, because it's going to help you retain more muscle as you diet, which can in turn help you lose a little bit more body fat. But I think people get a mistake of tailoring their program specifically around fat loss, and then they end up doing high reps or something, and then they sacrifice that muscle building potential and that muscle retention potential because they lighten the load too much, thinking they're just trying to burn calories. Don't think about your weight training as like a calorie burn. I would look at cardio as that. So think about cardio as more of a calorie burn for fat loss. Weight training, focus on weight training as it's intended and used for building and maintaining your lean body mass. Good question. Let's see. What's cracking? What's cracking, Scotty? All right, let's see. Happy Friday. One from YouTube here. Happy Friday, Keith. For protein, if daily macro does not carry over day to day, like carbs and fats, is it accurate to say compliant if still hits 7-day average, but had some daily variance of plus or minus 20 grams, for example? So first and foremost, the thing that's most important is you're hitting your calories. So that is like a higher priority than actually getting in the right amount of protein, because if you are not eating the right amount of calories, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're already doing a disservice to your goals. So first priority, hit your calories. Then once you're able to do that, then you want to focus on protein. And if you have a bad day here or there and you're maybe 20 grams under, I don't think it's a huge deal as long as your average works out by the end of the week. With that said, it could be less effective for muscle building and muscle retention if you aren't having a consistent protein intake where you're hitting those targets every day. But in terms of overall body composition changes, I don't think you're going to see any significant difference, like not making the progress that you want from being 20 grams under on one day. But yeah, from a muscle building standpoint, it's not ideal. Hopefully that answers your question. Easiest way to account for marinades and oils in my food. So if you are adding that to your own food, all you need to do is just weigh it. So you can weigh, let's go with oils, for example. You can weigh how much oil you put in it, and then you're going to weigh it after you, for a marinade. Let's do marinade, actually. So marinade, you mix up the marinade, you put the meat in it. I would first weigh how much marinade the whole amount of marinade weighs, and then put the meat in it, and then take your final weight after you take the meat out. Then you can subtract the two and figure out how much of that marinade went into that food, and then you can pretty much just track it as that. If it's really low calorie marinade and it's not like a ton of fat, it's not going to make much of a difference. And maybe just count like a few grams of fat extra for that food. I don't think you need to get too anal about it, but I would track some fat, because you're going to get some fat from the oils and marinades. Yeah, there's really no like best way to do it. It's just try to account for it as accurately as possible, and weighing it before and after you put it in the marinade is probably going to be the best approach. Thanks for doing a live on Memorial Day weekend. You're helping us stay on track. You're welcome, Trisha. I don't have too many plans for this holiday weekend, so figured it would be nice to keep doing this, to do this live stream on the holiday weekend. And if you guys have specific questions around Memorial Day and tracking certain things, let me know. I'll try to do my best to answer those on here. So thank you for joining in. Let's see. Sometimes there's a difference in macros when I scan the barcode versus what's on the label, which is more accurate. So what's going to be more accurate is what's on the food labels, because that's going to be constantly updated, and they won't be able to sell it if they don't update those labels, if they change their formulas or whatever. So the food database is going to take a little bit of time to catch up if the item just recently updated their nutrition information on that food. So I would always default to what the food label says. And if it doesn't match up in Carbon, what you can do is you can create a custom food, and you can just enter the correct macros in there. I actually think, I'm using my phone right now, but I would check, but I think when you scan the food item, you have the option to modify it in the top right corner. So you can just modify that food that gets scanned, and then it will create a custom food for you. So anytime you come across inaccuracies with what's scanned, I would do it that way. All right. Are you adding any other countries' food databases soon? We are not. We already support US, Canada, Australia, and UK. So that's quite a few already. And the database license is extremely expensive. So we don't have plans like in the near future to open that up. But if we get more demand in certain countries or certain regions, and it makes sense financially to license that database in that specific country, then we will do that. But that said, you'll be able to find it. If we don't have a specific database for your country, you'll be able to find all like generic foods anyway. So it's only the branded foods that you won't find. So if you're in one of those countries, you just got to make some custom foods based on the brands that you buy, and then you'll be all set. But I understand it can be a little bit of work to do that, but unfortunately, if you're not in those 4 countries that we support for the food database, you will have to do that. All right. Let's see here. So it's been several months since my last check-in. Should I reset the coach or just check in where the coach currently is? So resetting the coach is most often a bad idea, because you will lose your previous check-ins. So the history of your check-ins will go away. If you want to just start back where you left off macro wise. Just check into the coach. It's going to keep your macros the same. If you want to change your goal, create a new goal and then have the app calculate based on your based on new. So since it's been a really long time, you don't want to use the previous metabolic history to create that goal. So just have it calculate new, and that way you don't have to reset the coach, and it won't clear out your previous check-ins, but it also won't take into account the metabolic rate that it calculated before in making that goal. So that's what I would recommend. Resetting the coach is usually a bad idea. The reason why we put it in there is because sometimes people, like right when they download the app, they play around a lot, create all these goals, screw everything up, and then they reach out to us in support and like, can you fix this? So we put the reset in there so that they can do it themselves without needing to reach out to us, and they can just start 100% fresh with the coach. But yeah, if you've been using the app, it's probably not a good idea to do that. So hopefully that answers that. All right, back to Instagram. What do we got here? Want to switch to maintenance after 9 weeks, reverse and compliant. Use current metabolism. If so, what number should I expect coach to use? How is it calculated? So if you've been compliant for 9 weeks and you switch your goal to maintenance and you use your current metabolism to calculate that new goal, it's going to use that. It's going to use your most recent 3-week or most recent 4-week rolling average metabolic rate value. So you can get an idea of what that is by going to the Me tab and then going to metabolic rate and then looking at your last month's average. So that should give you a good idea of where that number will be. And then when you create your goal, it'll put your calories right around that mark there. So that'll give you an idea of where your maintenance is at. What's the recommended protein intake? I've seen some posts on Bioline referring to total mass and not lean body mass. Lean body mass is going to be the most accurate way to set your protein targets, because protein, you want to set protein targets to optimize your lean body mass and your muscle mass. So setting it based on your total body weight isn't going to be as accurate for you as going based on your lean body mass. And so if you are overweight, for example, and you weigh quite a bit, the app, or not the app, but if you do it based on your total body weight, it could give you a way higher protein target than you actually need. And so if you have not much lean body mass, but a lot of body fat, you don't need all of that protein to optimize your muscles. So it's better to put those calories more towards carbs and fats and more as an energy source as opposed to eating a bunch of protein because you weigh a lot. So going based on lean body mass is going to be most accurate. The reason why people recommend it based on just total weight is because a lot of people don't know their lean body mass or their body fat percentage, and they just want a quick, easy way to figure out how much protein they need. And that's why some people just say go based on your total body weight. If you're within a normal range weight, that should be fine. But if you're on the extreme of underweight or extreme of overweight, going based on your total mass is probably not going to be a good idea. All right. Let's see. Back to Facebook, YouTube. What if you're doing workout at home and there's no access to heavy weights, so there'll be no chance to do higher reps for building muscle? Higher reps aren't needed for building muscle. Lower reps aren't needed for building muscle. Just providing your body with that stimulus to add muscle and providing a progressive overload over time can be done in many different ways. So it doesn't need to be high reps, low reps. Now, moderate rep ranges seem to give you a nice bang for your buck. You know, it's a nice middle ground where you don't have to do a ton of sets to reach that progressive overload, and you don't need to use like super crazy heavy weights to do it. You're more in the moderate rep range. Now, with your question of at-home workouts and no access to heavy weights, it's going to be really hard to build muscle outside of the beginner phase if you're doing home workouts. I think you might, if you're a beginner, you'll make progress doing basically anything. So home workouts can work for building muscle if you're a beginner. But if you've been training for, you know, more than a year or something like that, you're probably not going to see any progress with muscle gains from working out at home unless you have access to all types of weights and equipment and stuff. It's just home workouts with like bands and things like that just aren't enough stimulus to produce like continual muscle gains over time. So you can't really progressively overload indefinitely using bands or anything like that. So there is like a limited cap, I believe, on how much muscle you're going to be able to build with those types of things. So if you can purchase weights, that would be ideal. And then being able to add weight over time on exercises is what's going to continually help you to build muscle. So do what you can with home workouts. Home workouts can suck, but they can be good if you have good equipment. All right. So let's see. You think I've noticed a difference in body composition going from 150 to 200 grams a day of protein? I'm 70 kilograms and 11% body fat. Cheers. I don't believe you're going to see any body composition differences, in my opinion, because 150 grams is it's not necessarily low for your lean body mass. It's still, I believe, within an adequate range. So I don't think going from 150 to 200, you would see any noticeable difference. Now, if you are, I would say if you are in a fat loss phase, you might notice some differences going from 150 to 200. But if you are just eating at maintenance or in a surplus, I don't think you're going to see any kind of difference. So yeah, I would go. You can also try. Like, it's impossible for me to say exactly what's going to happen. I can only say based on what the research shows for adequate protein intakes, but everybody's different. Like, there's some people that are outliers that need more protein. Some people don't need as much. With research, you look at averages and stuff, so it's not going to tell you specifically what you need. There's just this range of what appears to be adequate for most people. So if you're using carbon, we set it based on lean body mass, and we set it so that it should optimize any kind of body composition changes in the app. So I would recommend using carbon if you want to kind of take that guesswork out of how much protein you need and the diet adjustments and stuff too. How do you feel about carb cycling? It's not needed, in my opinion. I prefer to have similar intakes most days. And if I do like high and low days, I'll just do high and low calorie days. So I kind of just scale my meals accordingly. If I did like just a high carb day where I just increase carbs and jack carbs up for a single day, I would have to drastically change my food choices, which causes more thought and all that stuff about what I'm going to eat. So if I have it, because I eat similar meals most days, I like to have the same meals for like a month at a time. And then when I get sick of it, I'll switch my meals up. But I like to not have to think about what to eat each day and, you know, do the macro Tetris every single day. So I tend to eat very similar foods every day. And if I want a high day, I'll just scale my serving sizes, and then I don't need to worry about doing anything fancy. But in terms of like fat loss or anything like that, carb cycling isn't going to do anything for you. It's not going to make you burn more body fat over time. If you're carb cycling, you're doing low carb on one day and then high carb on another. Yeah, you might burn a little bit more body fat on that low carb day, but then when you're eating the high carbs, you might be storing a little bit more body fat, and the overall flux of those two is going to be the same. So I don't think there's any benefits to carb cycling from a body composition standpoint. From a performance standpoint, there's an argument if you are like an athlete and doing certain strategies for carb cycling can help certain things, but for most people, I wouldn't recommend going down that rabbit hole because it's not going to really provide you any more benefit for body composition, and it's just more of a hassle in my opinion. But if you enjoy it, go ahead and do it. You are welcome. Fit Life Addicts, can you ask it in the question box thing? Sometimes it gets lost in the comments here on Instagram, so it's easier for me to see if you make a question thing for it. All right, let's see. Using waist size is not accurate for estimating my body fat, which makes my protein range on the lower side. I eat high protein to keep myself satiated. Is there probably an improved feature? So if you know your body fat percentage, it's ideal for you to put it in. So if you feel like it's not giving you an accurate body fat percentage estimation, I would get your body fat tested and enter that into the app so that you can have more protein. We needed a simple way for people that don't know their body fat percentage to be able to use the app. So that's why we put in the waist size and just gives the app a rough estimate of where your body fat percentage is. But if you want it to be more accurate, you need to provide it more accurate information. So put in a body fat percentage and get it tested, put it in, and that'll give you a better outcome in terms of protein, in my opinion. All right. Let's see. I've signed up for a coach for training and nutrition, but I haven't heard from anyone as of yet. What can I do? I'm not sure what you're referring to, but we don't have any coaches for training and nutrition. We have the Carbon app is a nutrition coaching app that it's not a specific person that you're being coached by. So sounds like that might be a whole separate thing, not associated with Carbon. But you said you've also subscribed to Carbon for 6 months. So if you have questions about Carbon, I can certainly answer that. But the other issue appears to not be related to Carbon, so I can't really help there. Could you tell me whether or not Mark compliant when eating out and estimating food? Depends on how accurate you're able to estimate. Like how confident do you feel like you are estimating, and then how often are you estimating? If you're estimating every single meal, like you could be very inaccurate with how much you're actually eating. So it depends. It's not like a clear-cut black and white answer for you. It's very subjective and up to your personal preference of how strict you want to be. Obviously, weighing all of your foods is going to be the most accurate and is going to give you the best outcome. But some people don't feel like weighing all their foods. So it's up to you how strict you want to be with the app and use the app. But if you're not getting the progress that you want, the results that you want, then you need to start looking at these things and being like, okay, is eating out actually a good idea right now if I'm in a fat loss phase? Like, is it a good idea that I'm estimating and I could potentially be off by 20% in calories? Like, is that a good idea? So it's all up to you and how, I guess, strict and important your goals are at this point. So I can't really say you need to mark compliant, you need to mark non-compliant. I will say if you do not hit the macro targets, you should mark non-compliant. If you hit the macro targets, you should mark compliant. Now, estimation is that gray area where it's kind of up to you on how much estimation you want to allow yourself. All right. Let's see. 46 years old. Should I get down to my ideal weight before trying a reverse? My calories are about 1505 and I'm not always 100% compliant, but pretty close day to day. I just want to eat more. Yeah, I mean, if you can stick out the dieting phase and reach your ideal weight, obviously that's going to be the best approach. Trying a reverse is isn't going to help you do anything in terms of body fat losses and losing weight. You know, it's the goal of a reverse diet is to help improve your metabolism after a dieting phase where it's been suppressed. So I would continue if you're able to get down to your goal weight and then do a reverse diet out of there to help bring your metabolism back to more normal ranges and hopefully help you eat a little bit more while maintaining that goal weight that you reached. If you have questions about the BioLane books, it's best to reach out to BioLane about that. I can't really answer stuff about his books. I don't understand what rebalancing the macros means, so I don't know. Can you give me a little more information of what that feature is? I don't use RP. Is it okay to stay under your macros? This is a common misconception with things like it's only bad if I'm over my macros, but I can be under them by hundreds of calories, and that's okay. Like as long as I don't eat over my macros. So your macro targets are targets. So that means you need to hit them as close as possible. They're not macro maximums, so they're macro targets. So under eating can be just as bad as overeating. So I would highly recommend you get as close as possible to your macro targets. All right. You're welcome, Chloe. No. I weigh all my, so Steve asks on YouTube, I weigh all my meat after I cook it and never before. Is that the best way to go for entering in carbon? Cooking food changes the weight, so I wasn't 100% sure. So weighing foods and meats raw is going to be the most accurate way to track it. Now, it is a total pain in the butt to weigh meat raw because of food safety reasons. You know, you got to put raw meat on your scale, and then you got to clean it, and you got to be all that food safety stuff. So it is usually not worth it, in my opinion. What you can do is if you cook the chicken the same way each time, that's going to really help because then you can estimate how much weight is lost from the cooking process and then kind of back calculate what you need to track. So let's say you grill your chicken every single week. What I would do is just the first time I would weigh the chicken raw, take a breast, weigh it raw, write that down, then put it on the grill it, and then weigh it again once it's fully cooked. And then the weight difference, you figure out the percent of weight that it lost. And then when you're tracking in Carbon, you search for chicken, which in the database in Carbon is going to be a raw weight, unless you can find an item that says cooked, which then they're basically doing this method that I'm telling you. But you find the raw chicken cooked in the Carbon database, then you would, let's say you lost 20% of your weight from that process of raw to grilling, you would take your final weight. So every time you want to eat it, let's say you want to eat 4 ounces, you take 4 ounces, you put it on the scale, you get 4 ounces, and then you multiply that by, let's say you lose 20%, you multiply that by 1.2, and that gives you the amount of ounces you need to track it as in Carbon so that you account for your protein correctly. So that's going to be the easiest way, in my opinion. You can go down the route of weighing all your meat raw and then cooking it, but I find that that's a big pain, and I don't like to do that, but it's up to you. But most accurate way, obviously, is going to be raw. This is the way that I described is, I think, a nice compromise in terms of accuracy and then ease of use. Would you please review the most recent guidance on how to do a diet break in Carbon? So Carbon doesn't have a diet break feature in the app. So if you are trying to do diet breaks, you're doing something that the app wasn't designed to do. Now, I realize that some people enjoy diet breaks and they want to do them in Carbon. So we have given you guidelines and a suggestion on how to implement them in the app because we don't have a feature for it. So the way that I would recommend doing it, and the way that we recommend doing it as a team, is you will switch your goal to maintenance. Now, when you do that, you want to have, it depends on how many weeks you have leading up to it. Let's assume that you have multiple compliant check-ins leading up to that, then, which you should. I mean, you shouldn't do a diet break like while you right after you just started dieting. Like, you don't need a break yet. But let's say you have multiple compliant check-ins, you're going to switch your goal to maintenance. You're going to use your currently estimated maintenance to create that maintenance goal. And then instead of checking in on day 7 of maintenance, just go into the settings, change your goal back to weight loss. And when you do that, have the app use your current estimated maintenance, which basically it would just be carrying over that maintenance that you used to create that maintenance goal into your next weight loss goal. And then this should be the same. And then when you are entering your weight for that starting of that goal, it's probably best to enter your average weight from the last week on your maintenance goal, and then start with that. So it also depends on, like, because there's two approaches. Like, if you want your weight to be where you were pre-diet break, maybe you would enter your average weight from the week before when you're creating your goal. Or if you want to start your dieting back from your higher weight after your diet break, then you would enter your average weight for that maintenance week. So, and then this should produce the smoothest results, in my opinion. But if you guys run into hiccups, just keep in mind that this is a workaround and we don't have a diet break feature in the app. So you are having that trade-off of having to do this workaround, and it's obviously not going to be 100% ideal. We want to have a diet break feature in the future, but it is a little far off yet. So for now, just do it this way, and hopefully that helps. We get so many questions about diet breaks. It's insane. I think diet breaks can be useful for certain people, but I also feel like they are a crutch for other people and prevent people from actually making progress. So it depends on your personality and what works best for you. But I personally don't do diet breaks. I like to just straight diet and kind of keep things steady and not have these breaks in there, because I don't necessarily need them mentally. I can just kind of get in the zone and diet. But some people need like this broken up. And if you do diet breaks, just keep in mind you're really extending the length that you are dieting for. So if you're throwing in a break every 2-3 weeks, you're going to really extend the length of how long you need to diet before you can reach your goal weight. So it's all trade-offs, and it all depends on what you enjoy best. So yeah, there's that. Can we use the fat percentage from one of those home scales that give you fat, muscle, water, bone? Yeah, you can. It's not going to be super accurate. Those are really dependent on your fluid, your hydration status. So they can be inaccurate. Let's say you're dehydrated one day or you're overhydrated. It's going to show a different value. So you want to, if you do use those scales, you're going to want to do it very consistently, same time every day, same conditions. What's best is usually first thing in the morning after using the bathroom. That's the best time usually to weigh yourself as well. So if you have one of those scales, just every morning, go to the bathroom, step on the scale, get your weight, get your body fat. You can enter that into the app every single day. And then the app will look at the trend and average over time, as long as you're compliant on your check-ins. So that's probably the best way to do it. I personally use one of those scales. So I use the Withings or Nokia Body Plus scale, and I enjoy it just because it's easy and it syncs into my phone. But I still have to enter the body fat and weight manually into Carbon, but at least it's easy to get that body fat percentage each morning. Hitting macros versus hitting calories. Hitting macros is going to be better for sure. In a mass gain phase, 5 months, lifting 6 times per week, should I maintain before cut? It depends. It's usually, it can help to let your weight stabilize before switching phases and giving yourself that mental break. Because let's say at the end of a mass phase, like your weight is pretty volatile and you could gain 4 pounds overnight. You know, you could hit a tipping point in your metabolism where you gain a ton of weight very quickly. So usually it's best to kind of let your weight stabilize, figure out where your maintenance is at, and then base your new weight loss phase on that estimated maintenance. So if you're doing it based on, if you're starting a weight loss phase based on your massing, it's going to be a little bit harder to find where you actually need to be eating. So that's typically why people recommend maybe doing like a maintenance phase in between, finding your maintenance, then you can easily set the deficit. FYI, Carbon has a lot of foods in the database that are cooked, even veg. Yeah, that's good to know. There are some that are not in there, which is, it kind of sucks, but it is always awesome to come across the ones that are cooked. You're putting a little bit of trust in the database to kind of be exactly how you cook it. So you might cook it a little differently. So that's why sometimes it's nice to figure out that conversion yourself of what cooked is versus uncooked, and have it be specific to your use case. But yeah, if it's something that's lower calories, like veggies or something like that, I think it's totally fine to just go with a cooked item in the database and not worry too much about it. But if it's something that has a little bit more higher calories, maybe you want to do that conversion yourself to figure out the difference. Let's see. Great questions today, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If you guys have questions, be sure to put them in the question box thing on Instagram or in the comments of Facebook, YouTube. My first check-in was this morning. I had everything to a gram all week long. And when I checked in, the app had all my averages way under and non-compliant. What would cause this discrepancy? Maybe there's an issue with your app not loading all of your diary data. So that could be a potential cause of that. If you go to settings and then support and reload data, that'll make sure that you pull in all the most recent data that you have tracked, and then that should give you the right averages. Otherwise, maybe maybe you forgot to track a day or something, or forgot to track a food. Maybe go back through your week and look at the diary and make sure that everything is in there. Because if it's missing something, then the average is going to be off. So Josie, it's impossible for me to really tell you what's going on with the app without looking at the back end. So it's best to reach out to support if you have specific questions about adjustments or reasons for doing things. So sorry, I can't give you a specific answer. We get so many people in the Facebook group like ask like, why did it do this, or what's it going to do if I do this? Like nobody in the group really truly knows what's going to happen. The best answer you're going to get is going to be from support, because they can look at your data. So it's usually best to reach out to support for technical type stuff like that. You did, but they didn't give you one either. So they didn't give you a reason. I don't understand what did they say? So my guess, I'm guessing, but it's impossible for me to know without looking at your count. Your goal is set to lose 0.5 kilograms a week. This week, you lost 0.8. Okay, but the app doesn't just look at a single week. It looks at your average over time. So if you have multiple compliant check-ins in a row, the app is going to look at the average weight loss over those check-ins. So my guess, yeah, you lost 0.8 kilograms this week, but what did you lose the week before and the week before that? I guarantee you didn't lose enough. So that's why the coach dropped you, it's because your average over those multiple weeks is less than 0.5 kilograms per week. So that's probably why it adjusted that. So yeah, they basically said same thing where the coach looks at trends and averages. You can't look at a single week. You lost 0.8 kilograms in a single week, but look at the week before and the week before that. The app tries to keep your average at the goal rate that you have set. You might have 1 week that you have higher, 1 week you have lower. It's the average what matters, and the average, it tries to keep that average at the rate that you have set. So that's probably why. Anyway, let's see. I'm at 260 from 285 in 4 months. Recently, my energy has been absolutely crashed. Is this fighting a set PT? Not sure what that means, but yeah, you probably hit a plateau and you are getting pretty low in calories for your body weight. So that's probably why your energy is starting to crash. If you have been straight dieting for 4 months, maybe you need a break. So maybe you should do a few weeks at maintenance or do a reverse diet if you're like completely crashed where you metabolism slow, you're not feeling good. Maybe do a reverse diet for a little while, and then once you get calories back up to more of a normal level, then do another push weight loss phase. So it just depends. If it's not sustainable, switch your goal, because you're just going to spin your wheels if you're not able to hit the recommended macros. All right. Should you plan a diet break or just see how you feel as cut goes? I would just see how you feel as the cut goes. If you need a diet break mentally, physically, then take one by all means. But if things are going good, I don't see any sense in stopping and doing a diet break for the sake of doing a diet break. I would do more of reactive type diet breaks instead of planning them every few weeks. That's just my opinion there. All right. If the meal macros are 30 grams protein, 50 grams carbs, and 10 grams fat, in the RP diet coach, if you put these macros in by mistake, your protein is going 40, it balances automatically. So the main difference between Carbon Diet Coach and RP is we don't tell you specific like foods you have to eat and you have to eat this for each meal. So that feature really doesn't make sense in Carbon because we don't tell you need to eat 30 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, 10 grams of fat in a single meal. You can split it up however you want. We give you basic guidelines on what we think is optimal and recommendations, but you can split your days however you want. So if you end up eating 40 grams of protein for that meal, you just have less for the day left. Yeah, that balancing macro thing is only really relevant for their app and not Carbon. When I reach my goal weight, do I just go to maintenance calories? It depends. So if your current maintenance calories are sustainable for you and you're fine eating those long term, then you can just switch right to maintenance and not have to do a reverse diet. But usually when you diet for an extended period of time, and work towards reaching your goal weight, you slow down your metabolism in the process. And that's when usually putting a reverse diet in there to help bring it back to more normal ranges before you do a maintenance phase is usually a good idea. So yeah, it depends on you and how long you've been dieting, where your calories are at, your preference, all those types of things. So can't really give you like a black and white answer there. All right. At 32% body fat, would you say I should get closer to my goal weight before trying to build more muscle? Main goal is losing body fat. So if your main goal is losing body fat, that should be your goal. Like you should do weight loss until you reach your goal body fat percentage, and then maybe try to focus on building more muscle after. But if you're not happy with your body fat percentage and you try to gain weight slowly to optimize muscle building, you're going to end up putting on more body fat that you aren't necessarily comfortable with. So I would recommend at least getting down to below a place where you're comfortable in terms of body fat percentage, and then you can build from there, whether that's going all the way to your like main goal, end goal body fat percentage, and then focusing on building muscle slowly over time, or just getting down to a more manageable body fat percentage, like in the 20s or something, and then building up from there. It's kind of up to you. But usually I think people are more happy longer term just doing that initial cut, getting them to their goal body fat percentage, and then they kind of switch gears and focus on building muscle. I'm running every day about 1.5 to 2 hours. I want to do resistance training instead. How can I transition without screwing up my calories / exercise balance, aka just transition without weight gain? So if you're not doing any weight training right now, and all you're doing is running every day 1.5 to 2 hours, I think what I would do is right off the bat, I would cut your running in half. So maybe do you can either cut your duration each day or cut your amount of days that you do per week. But I would cut it in half, and then I would also, in the same time, I would introduce your weight training. So maybe start off doing 3 days a week weight training. I think if you do 3 days a week of weight training and then you cut your running in half, I think that's going to balance out pretty well, and you won't really notice any weight gain doing that. And then over time, you can slowly cut back on the running, and then you can also slowly increase the weight training if you need to. So it depends on how far you want to go with it. Do you want to completely remove running and cardio and only do weight training? You can work towards that goal over the course of many weeks, but I wouldn't do it all at once. So I wouldn't completely cut out cardio and then just introduce this whole new weight training 5-6 days a week. Like, I don't think that's a good idea. So do, like I said, where you cut cardio in half and introduce weight training by like 3 days a week to start. Great answer. Thank you. You are welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Let's see. Lisa, I should be at my goal weight in 3 weeks. That's awesome. Like I said, it depends on how long you've been dieting and how you're feeling at your calories. So go in the me section of Carbon and look at where your maintenance calories are estimated at right now, and see if those seem sustainable for you long term. And if so, then you can just switch to maintenance. If they seem like, hey, that's too low, my metabolism is suppressed a little bit, then I would do the reverse. Let's see. If I burn 700 to 1,000 calories working out, do I adjust anything for my daily calories? No, you shouldn't adjust anything in Carbon based on calories burned from anything. The app will figure out exactly where you need to be eating based on what you're doing on the weight training and cardio side. So it makes up the difference and adjust your diet until you are progressing at the rate that you want. So you don't need to do anything special. And I also wouldn't recommend even looking at those numbers of what you burn calorie-wise. They are very inaccurate. They can cause people to think that they need more calories than they actually do. So if you're not losing weight and you're eating back calories from exercise, that's your problem right there, because it's an estimate and they're usually very inaccurate. And so that's why we don't have anything to do with that in the app. We don't want to introduce any chance of having that inaccurate information really skew your diet. So you don't need to worry about that stuff, calories burned during exercise or anything like that. Don't worry about that. Just set your goal rate of loss that you want in carbon. It'll ask you to set your activity level and your training in like your daily activity, and then as well as your exercise activity. As long as you set those accurately to what you're doing to start, the coach will take over from there, and it doesn't need to really have any more information about your activity levels. To clarify, once I'm done with mass gain, should I just switch to fat loss? It depends. Usually, I like to do a maintenance phase in between, where you're not focused on increasing your weight. You're focused on maintaining your weight and then letting the app figure out where your maintenance calories are at. Now, if you've been using the app for a really long time, it's probably got a good understanding of where your maintenance calories are at. But it can be helpful to have that mental break as well of putting a maintenance in between mass and fat loss, just because going from mass gain macros to fat loss macros, it's a huge cut in calories. And most people, that's like a huge change to them. So to lessen that blow a little bit more, you can put that maintenance phase in between, where it's more of a stepwise approach, getting into a deficit. You know, you take calories down a little bit, you're maintaining, then you take them down to fat loss levels, and it's less of an abrupt change. So I like to do maintenance after, usually after each phase, just because it's nice to have that mental break. But yeah, that's completely up to you. I don't know what my zone is. Do you find my zone to be accurate? I don't know what that is. Sorry. All right. Yeah, there's so many like questions about that, like maintenance before cut, after mass gain, after this, before this. Like you could, like I said, you could go from mass gain to fat loss. You could go from fat loss to mass gain. You could go from going from fat loss to mass gain, though, is usually pretty dangerous just because your metabolism's suppressed. So in that case, usually it's good to do a reverse diet after fat loss if your metabolism's suppressed, and then maybe go into more of a mass gain phase. But you could switch phases without doing maintenance in between, but I like doing maintenance in between just because, like I mentioned before, it's a nice mental break, and it's also not a huge abrupt change. My zone is a heart rate monitor that gives you calories burned. So I haven't used it, but I, just like every other device that estimates calories burned, my guess is it's pretty inaccurate. So I wouldn't use it for that. You can use it to track your heart rate, but I wouldn't put any weight in the numbers it spits out for calories burned, honestly. Why doesn't the app ask height when doing intake for macro calculations? So height in isolation doesn't have any impact on your metabolic rate. The only reason why some formulas ask your height is because that uses that to determine your overall mass level. Like usually when you're taller, you end up weighing more as well. So having just height in isolation, you can't really have a height in isolation because height is going to affect your weight, you know. So but the way that we calculate your macros and your metabolic rate, we use a formula that doesn't need height. So it's not like Mifflin St. Jean or Harris Benedict or those types of equations that a lot of other people use. We use a different equation that doesn't need height. And so it's been working well for carbon, and we really like it. And yeah, so we don't need it. As long as, the only caveat is with the formula that we use, we have to have a body fat percentage. So that's why we also have the weight measurement in the app if you don't know your body fat percentage, because we need a rough estimate of where your body fat percentage is to give you an accurate metabolic rate estimation. Is there any benefit to taking only 1 gram of creatine on training days? Let's see. Also, I feel anxious after it and feels that it is not digest absorbed through the body. Any suggestion? It depends on. I would take creatine monohydrate. That's going to be the best form to take it in, the most effective form that's been studied the most. If you have GI discomfort from taking creatine, you're going to want to split it up, maybe even split it less than a gram in a single dose. So maybe take multiple doses each day. Take 4 doses at whatever, half a gram, 4 half a gram doses every day to saturate yourself. So split it up. 1 gram on training days only. It's very unlikely that you're going to see any benefit from doing that. That's just not enough. Most people, it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 grams a day to fully saturate themselves and their muscles. So if you're only taking 1 gram, you're already way under that recommended amount to saturate your muscles. And then if you only take it on training days, you're really under the recommended amount. So I don't think that's going to do anything for you. If creatine doesn't agree with your body, you don't enjoy taking it, you get anxious, maybe just don't take it. Maybe those things outweigh the benefits, the potential benefits that you're going to get from supplementing with it. So maybe make that decision. Can we gain muscle by taking reps to failure in a scenario of limited weights, intermediate lifter? It completely depends on, or it also depends on like how much training volume you're doing. So, if you do a single set a week and you take that set to failure, do you think you're building any muscle by taking a single set to failure? So you need also volume. Taking set to failure is very high intensity. It's a very high intensity effort, but if the volume is not there to also support building muscle, you're not going to build muscle. So I would make sure that your volume is sufficient to make progress. And then taking reps to failure is going to be better in terms of time. So if you have less time and you can't get as many sets in, taking more sets to failure is going to increase that potential of building muscle, but you still are going to need enough training volume to do it there. So the only downside to training, that intense and training to failure on all your sets is it's going to really impact your recovery. So you need to be careful. And if you are training to failure often and you're not taking the adequate break, deloads or rest and recovery, you could end up overtraining pretty easily. So just be careful with training to failure. Most of the time, for most people, it's best to train 1 to 2 reps away from failure, to where you are 1 or 2 reps away from complete muscular failure. That's usually enough intensity to optimize that process, but it's also not going to give you that huge recovery hit where you need to recover even more to make up for that. So training all your sets to failure usually is not a good idea. Training some sets to failure towards the end of your workout usually is a good idea. But yeah. Let's see. So I have only, oh, I'm running out of time here. I got like 15 seconds left. So Elisa, quick question here. How do you know if your metabolism is suppressed? Well, if you've been dieting and your maintenance calories are now lower than where they were when you started dieting, then your metabolism is suppressed. So you can look at your starting maintenance when you started a diet and then your ending estimated maintenance when you ended the diet. Look at that difference in calories, and you'll be able to see how much your metabolism is suppressed. Now, some of those metabolic changes are due to you just having less mass. So if you end up losing a bunch of weight, you're going to need fewer calories, not because your metabolism necessarily slowed down, your metabolic rate slowed down, but you just require less calories because you weigh less. So that's also playing into this as well. So it's not in complete isolation, but should be able to get a good idea of how suppressed your metabolism is by looking at starting and ending maintenance calories. Anyway, appreciate everybody tuning in. That's it for this live stream. I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend. We do these live streams every single Friday. So next week, I believe, is Lane, and then the following week is Holly, and then the week after that is me. So we kind of do this every 3-week rotation between Lane, Holly, and I. So be sure to tune in next Friday, and I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see you later.